Hiya, my name is Stephanie Mackey. I'm homeless 9 months with 6 kids, thrown in and out of B&B's, emergency accommodation. They had me in a mobile home in Waterford for 8 weeks. They didn't care, they didn't give a damn where I was going or how I was getting paid or how my kids were getting to school, nothing. I just want to end to it. It's not fair. The kids are their first Christmas in emergency accommodation is very hard. The suffering is unbearable. What we get put through every day, and there's no help, nothing. I just want to end to homelessness now, and I think it's about time Cork City came together and stood together for all the homeless children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steph. Our next speaker is a guy called Frank Buttimer. He is a member of the Connolly Youth Movement, and he has a few words for us today. He's very welcome. Please give him a big round of applause. Thanks.
So, hello. So this speech today represents the views of the Connolly Youth and how we see the problems many of us face today, of which there are many. No, it's fine. For such a small country, there exists of late so much grief, so much sadness and so much pain. And something worth asking is, what has happened to so many of us that makes us feel that this is okay, or that this is a normal way to view each and every day as we go out and face what is a very hostile political climate? And while I am giving this speech, I feel quite privileged to do so. When this is over, I have a house to return to, and I will lay my head in a warm pillow before I go to sleep. But every day and every week, more and more of us are unable to say the same. Families going back to live in B&Bs and hotels, people sleeping on couches, people living in tents, people living in conditions that can only be described as squalor, and those who just lie down before us because they have nowhere else to go. Families being left homeless before Christmas, Garda supervision during evictions, rents that seem to be beyond anybody's control, rapacious vulture funds, and houses that lie idle, and which really shed light on how rotten Irish politics has become. In a society totally overburdened with problems, I think housing stands out as one of the issues that will define my generation and the generations that follow. What are we to do with a government that will not properly house its people, and ultimately who is to blame? On a visit to Cork, I think it was this year, Leo Varadkar said, when it comes to housing, some commentators and parties are obsessed with the mechanism of delivery, rather than simply with delivery. Their focus is ideological. Our focus is different. It's not an ideology, it's on delivery. But what are Fine Gael delivering? Well, what has been proposed to us is a future that can only be described as bleak. These co-living spaces where you share living quarters with up to 40 people, and rooms that look like little dog boxes. That is what Fine Gael will deliver. Ideology plays such a strong role in how they view the world. Fine Gael don't care about you or me, and view profits for speculators and developers as taking priority over a decent place to live. Owen Murphy, our Minister for Housing, calls situations like these trendy, and that my generation will have to make sacrifices. And this year, Owen Murphy was also quoted as saying, "We need more landlords." I hope it's obvious to everybody here, we definitely do not need more landlords. If anything, we need to get rid of landlords. Landlords have been a plague on Irish society. That you feel you are entitled to almost half of someone's wages is beyond obscene. Landlords are scum who are taking advantage of a very specific ideological position taken up by Fine Gael and their lackeys. Fine Gael are a party composed of landlords. Their interests are one and the same. Rent caps were recently shut down for Cork specifically, and it continues to have the second highest rates in the country on average, €1,372 per month, which is a 5.5% increase on last year. And the sad thing is behind all these figures are lives that have been destroyed. Food queues with children eating off the floor, and with those who tried to help seeing those numbers climb every year. This is the economic reality Fine Gael have created, and it is due to the ideology they themselves impose upon us. Housing as a commodity, not a human right, is what reflects their style of delivery. It doesn't matter if the conditions are horrendous or that you share a room with 5 people in bunk beds. What matters is that the market is protected and profits are kept intact. Why is it that the working class must continually suffer the effects of cutbacks in precarious living? Look at the average rent and look at the average monthly wage. How is anybody supposed to feel like they have any control over their lives? People are working just to stay afloat and to simply exist. Workers' rights and housing rights are one and the same. If you can't strike for high wages, you have to suffer through high rents. If you have rent to pay, you have to put up with your horrible work conditions or face eviction. It's a deadlock between employers who want to profit from your labour and landlords who want to take a piece of what they definitely have not earned. Something worth adding is that a minimum wage increase was not made part of the budget for 2020. What ideology does that reflect? And what of the other parties? Well, recently in Dublin, O'Devney Gardens, which was public land, was sold off to a private developer named Barta, with the consent of the Greens, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, the Soc Dems. And what always surprises me is the finger pointing that goes on the Dáil, but the level of commitment each party then has to market values and private gain. Owen Murphy was recently quoted as saying that there was never any guarantee that a cost rental scheme was part of the deal. Are we to believe that the members of each of those parties are stupid or confused? Or should we believe that they knew exactly what they were doing when they agreed to the deal? They are all guilty of bottlenecking real political change into electoral politics. The recent turnout by voters reflects just how alienated people are from political change. And the solutions proposed by these parties are always around gaining seats, with no real way to enforce the promises that they make during their electoral campaigns. Real change comes from boots on the ground and organising in your workplace and in your communities. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil would rather have a sedated, apathetic population of voters who have no hopes or expectations for the future. And with the rise of far-right politics, how else can you describe groups like the National Party, anti-corruption under Gemma Doherty, and figures like Gran Torino, but as literal scum of the earth? What they represent is a racism that never really went away, but now has a voice and uses very sly, very purposeful political phrases to distract people from the real institutions of power and direct them towards the most vulnerable. Populist phrases like Ireland first, look after your own, do nothing, but instill a distorted view as to who is actually constructing our economic environments. They should be run out of our communities and have these views challenged. These phrases like look after your own, do nothing, but distract from the class reality which makes up our society. Does Fine Gael not look after their own when they subsidise landlords, when they subsidise the multinationals, and when they protect the bankers? They are looking after their own. You have more in common with migrant workers than you do with any Irish landlord. It's time to stop letting these parasites divide the working class. And just to finish, we are the Connolly youth, and we uphold the ideals of James Connolly. James Connolly wanted to set out that cities exist in their people, not their property. Connolly had an idea of the city as a place for citizens to flourish rather than to simply work and exist. Our cities, Connolly says, can never be made habitable or worthy of enlightened people while the habitation of its citizens remained the property of private individuals. To permanently remedy the evils of the city, the citizens must own their own city. And this is what the CYM today proposes, that housing be enshrined in the Constitution so nobody will be left without a roof over their head, and these solutions will never be left to the market. I want to end with the phrase, public housing is the solution. Put it in the Constitution. Thank you. Wow.